Good day. Hello, I'm Mr. Bowers and I'm live with you for chapter 29 for AP World. That's correct. And first of all, we will start off with some vocabulary. Let's take a look at that now. Wait, did I see that right? Let's take a look at that one more time. All right, so first of all, let's start with inflation. Inflation, let me think here. I can reach into my pocket and what do I have? Amazingly enough, money. Yes, you guessed it, right there. Money. Money, money, money. And when you think of inflation, it's the rapid rise in price. So you had a little bit of money, and now you have, wow, a lot of money. So price increased. And so as prices go up, don't let your pockets go down. If you're short on money, don't get stuck in the ground. I don't know. Anyways, it's the rapid rise in prices. That's inflation. And what happened is during World War I, all the money that was, all the destruction that was caused, countries were trying to make up for it by raising taxes. No, they didn't. They didn't raise taxes. What am I talking about? No, they didn't raise taxes. What they did instead is they printed more money. And the printing of more money made prices go up. So what you could have bought for one quarter was no longer a quarter. It was several quarters. And that's the concept of inflation. Our next vocabulary word is fascism. Fascism was started by Benito Mussolini. And basically, fascism is the idea of total control by a dictator. And Mussolini was the example of this. And he was really against communism and capitalism. So hopefully you're looking at this in your notes. So that's fascism, and it was seen in different places, not just in Italy. Next up is communism. And communism is the idea of, it's a system of social organization in which all of the economic and social activity is controlled by the state. So in communism, the state owns everything. And then our next vocabulary, wow, the lights went off in here. That's amazing. Let's see if I can get them back on. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Look at that. That's amazing. It was like lightning. Capitalism. Capitalism is the idea where there's private ownership. Private ownership by an individual or private ownership by a corporation. They own all the capital needed for business. They own all the means of production, the means of distribution. And so it's a private individual or corporation. So communism is where the government owns everything. Capitalism was where a private individual owns it. And then next is the idea of socialism. And basically the idea of socialism is that it calls for ownership and control of the means of production and such by the community as a whole. So it's like all the people, not just one person, but the people together. So Karl Marx and others would have spoke of this as like an in-between stage where it's leading to communism. So socialism, like the social group is owning the control of means of production and such. All right, so that's the differences. Again, you have communism, total ownership by the government. Capitalism is private ownership. That's like you would have in America and other places. And then socialism is ownership by the group. And so you start to see some socialist type of thinking in different countries, even in America, as more and more ownership is by the group. All right, next up, the Roaring Twenties. So this is the first part of the chapter. We've just done defined some words that are going to come up later. But the Roaring Twenties, we know from World War I that there was major death. Europeans, 10 million plus died. Major destruction. You know about all of the ways that France especially was trying to get reparations for all the damage that was done. And as I said in the vocabulary, the way that governments were trying to deal with this was to raise taxes, but not to raise taxes. I said that wrong again. They didn't want to raise taxes. Instead, they printed more money. I don't know what my problem is, but they printed more money. Most governments today would want to raise taxes, but they printed more money, and that devalued money, which again, what's that called? Inflation, yes. So Japan and the United States, they take over the export markets really during the war and after, and we talked a lot about how America was the creditors and they put themselves in a good place and they put themselves on the map. At the same time, post-World War I, American culture is booming. Some examples of this you probably saw were jazz. There's my lights again. Amazing. Jazz and Hollywood is starting to boom as well. So this industry that's taking place. The United States actually starts to isolate itself for a while, and they just do their own thing. And part of this is the Red Scare. They're afraid of communism, and they don't want their society to be impacted by it, people to be communists. So that's part of it. Japan is becoming huge in industrialization. And a big part of this is this fancy word, I don't know if you wrote it down, and maybe I should put it on the screen, which is zaibatsu. There it is. Amazing. Zaibatsu. That's the idea of big family, combined families connected to the government, running these huge corporations. One example of that would be Mitsubishi, which we talked about before, but not in this context. So there's this connection to the government by these huge family combined corporations. Japan at the same time gives voting rights to adult males. You like that? Like when I get close like that? Isn't that like awesome? But the political structure isn't totally set yet. Next up is the rise of fascism and things like fascism. Well, we know that Benito Mussolini, he wants a state that replaces, when we say state, we're talking about government. He wants a state that replaces capitalism and socialism. He doesn't want either one of those hanging around. And since the Italian parliament really wasn't making things happen in the fashion that he wanted to make happen, he sees authoritarian leadership as the way to go. So fascists, they seize power however and whenever they can seize it, and they eliminate their opposition as they see fit. Like, elimination. Elimination. Other countries in East Central Europe are in a way kind of copying fascists, but not exactly. They're kind of doing their own thing. They're leaning towards that tendency of authoritarian power because economically things just aren't working in other ways. So now let's talk revolutions.